Are you live on TikTok?
Not yet. Tell me
Yeah,
when.
you can go ahead. You can go live. We're live, basically.
You are live on
We're
TikTok.
live on TikTok. TikTok may be my favorite platform after all. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Um, Last day of February, 2 months into the year. It's hard to believe. My name is David Heacock. I'm the founder and CEO of FilterBuy. I have bootstrapped FilterBuy into about a $250 million a year business over the last 12 years, and I have made every business mistake under the book, at least that I've found in the book so far. And I do this Q&A every Friday, with the premise being that I answer your questions and hopefully give you a little bit of insight, so you don't make the same mistakes that I have made. Maybe you find some different mistakes and you can share your learnings with me or share your learnings with other people. But I really enjoy this time every week, where I get to take questions about business or entrepreneurship or or life, if you want to go there. But I love business and everything entrepreneurship related. It's been basically my whole life. I've been an entrepreneur since I was since I was a kid, always finding ways to build or to make a little extra money. And for me, entrepreneurship and business really is an art. And part of why I enjoy it so much is that I view this business and everything that I do as my painting that will never be finished. And I intend to do it for the rest of my life in one way or another. And I wake up every day and approach every week and month and year with the idea of learning something new and building and continuing to build and continuing to compound off of what I have done in the past. And so it's very much a lifelong journey and a lifelong, learning, lifelong commitment to learning and to improvement. That's how I view entrepreneurship, how I view business. And I think that I would encourage anyone that really wants to get into a business or into entrepreneurship to really have that mindset. And I think that one of the things that is so that has become a little bit toxic about the modern day social media and kind of entrepreneurship culture is it's so transactional, so short term, all about the flash and like what you can what you can show off to other people. And I think that what has been lost in that is the kind of meaning and purpose that you ultimately can find in business, or at least I have found in business. And I think having a more a longer term horizon, a longer term outlook, and viewing it as a mechanism for self-improvement and for growth, and for helping those around you and for benefiting those people around you is really something that I'm very committed to. And part of my motivation for doing all of this content is to show people maybe a different side of entrepreneurship and business than you would see flashed over YouTube and social media. And I just to bring a different perspective to that, and one that is unique to me and one that I feel good about, and really passionate about, because I love it. I love what I do, and I want other people to find what it is that works for them and that they find meaning in, and can ultimately build a life and build a better life for themselves and for the people around them, because that is what entrepreneurship at its best is all about, in my opinion, or business at its best is what business is when it's at its best, also, in my opinion. So with that, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I really appreciate it. It's something that I'm certainly passionate about, doing these Q&As, and intend to do them for the foreseeable future. But would really appreciate if you would hit the like button, or maybe tell a friend, and start to share it. It's something that means a lot to me. So I'd really appreciate it. And feel free to ask your questions. I mean, we basically will answer almost anything. And if I don't have an opinion, I will tell you I don't have an opinion. But feel free to ask your questions. There are basically nothing is off limits. So have fun with it, and we will start with your questions. So Michael, if you want to go to the first question. Edit name here. Is it always the same person with edit name here, or is it, so that's the actual username? So I guess I used to think that it was not following instructions, but I mean that's actually kind of a cool name, I guess, if you snagged it. So I will stop making fun of you for not following directions. What was your most important hire you've made that made the biggest difference in your company? I um, you know, I think that putting it down in one single hire is really just not, it's not fair. I mean, it really depends on the point in the business, right? I mean, and I think there have been a lot of key hires that I've made along the journey. But if I was going to call one out that was very formative for me, and is a guy that still works for me, his name is Gary McDowell, and he's in his early 80s and still comes into the office every day. But when I first bought Talladega Machinery and Supply Company, which was a small industrial supply business, and that had nothing to do with air filtration. I had an inkling that I was interested in the whole air filter market. I mean, I've talked about it, how I was trying to choose between um, remanufactured ink cartridges and pleated air filters, and pleated air filters was one of them. And I started like searching around for somebody that knew something about how to manufacture pleated air filters. And I ultimately came across Gary, who was, I believe, 70 at the time, and semi-retired, and had some knowledge about the pleated air filter industry. And he came over as a consultant and worked with me to kind of unpack the industry, and for me to understand what I was getting myself into. And without him and without his knowledge, I would have really struggled to figure out those early days of manufacturing. And like I said, he still is around to this day and has been very formative for me in figuring it out. And so he would definitely be the person that I would point to as being the most kind of formative hire for me. And what I would the lesson I would get from that, and why I think it's worth even talking about, is if you don't know something, then going and finding somebody who does is oftentimes the answer. And maybe that's a consultant that has specific knowledge, when I first hired Gary, he was a consultant that was working for me on a short-term contract to be able to help me figure something out. And I still use that model today, whereas like if I'm trying to figure out a problem or trying to solve a problem that I don't have the expertise to do, or nobody on my team has the expertise to do, I will go and search around for somebody that does have the expertise in that. And maybe I don't hire them full time, or maybe I don't have the money or the justification of being able to hire them full time, but I'm able to hire them short term as a consultant to help me to figure something out. And there are a lot of people that do that, and I think it's a strategy that is oftentimes overlooked when you're, especially early on, when you're trying to get started into a business or a new venture or a new project, whatever the case might be. That's oftentimes, in my opinion, the starting point. And then, as you get bigger, as you start to grow, you start to build a system that is replicatable. Then is when you can go out and find people that have specific expertise within that system that can help you to make it better, whether that be a good CFO or a good operations person. You kind of need to do the initial work, figure it out, and then go out and hire people that have done what you're looking to do before, and have them come in and really put gasoline on the fire of this hopefully robust system that you've already built. So that's kind of how I think about it. But Gary would definitely be my most formative early hire. So hopefully that answers your question. Actually, we'll take a TikTok question that I was just given, because TikTok, we actually have a surprising number of people joining us on TikTok, and I really appreciate it. I never would have thought that TikTok would tune into a 42-year-old guy talking about business, but I guess I'm being proven wrong. What ERP do you use? we use a custom built ERP system that I basically built from the beginning. And I would definitely not recommend that today. Although ironically, with AI, it would be much easier to build your own ERP system today. And I suspect it's going to get a lot easier. And, I think that the common wisdom that people give, which I do believe is true for 90+% of people, is you should not build your own software if you're not in the software business. You should just use third-party solutions, and none of them are going to be perfect, but you should make them work, because software and investing in software and managing software is such a pain, such a skill set, and it's not something that most businesses want, that have the expertise really of dealing with. Well, I took the opposite approach to that, and for me, that has been game changing in that, like, I could not have built my business in the last 12 years without having built my own custom ERP, because we do so much stuff that a off the shelf type ERP system just can't do. And the reason why I was so confident in doing it earlier on, or made the decision to build my own early on, is in the industrial supply company I built. When I bought it in 2012, I honestly had no clue what an ERP system was. Like, if you told me ERP, I wouldn't have even known what you were referring to. Well, I bought the business, and the first question that I asked, and remember that this was not a traditional business buy. I bought it from family, and so didn't really have a due diligence process or anything that was very formal that I would expect if I was going to go in and do a transaction today. So I bought this business. And one of the first questions I asked I went to the controller and said, "So how do I see how the business is doing? Like, how do I know, like, what our daily sales are, or monthly sales are, or how much money we're making?" And I was basically presented with this printout on green and white paper, that line paper from like a old printer, that you printed out from this like DOS-based system, your profit and loss or whatever. And that was the only way. Like, you couldn't really see it on a computer screen, or you certainly couldn't log in from remotely from your laptop or whatever. You had to be there, like, on network, to be able to see what was happening. And so I realized very quickly that I had no choice but to understand or learn what an ERP system was. And I ended up going through a process, and I thought I was very innovative and forward thinking at the time. And in 2012, NetSuite, which is a cloud-based ERP that's very popular today, a lot of you probably are aware of it, was fairly in its fairly early stages. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be on the cutting edge, and I'm going to do a NetSuite implementation, which we did. And I ended up spending $450,000 that I did not have to do a upgrade from that old Epicor, what they call Profit 21 ERP system, to NetSuite. And it was an extremely painful process. And we hired consultants to figure out how to write up all these workarounds that the various employees had said were very necessary to be able to run the business. And that was a very, very painful process for me, both financially and emotionally. And I realized how these ERP systems will say that they will solve all of your problems, and then in reality, the implementation of them is a lot more hairy than they like to sell you. And so when I was starting FilterBuy at roughly the same time, I made the decision to start building my own purpose-built software that would solve the problems that we needed. And that is effectively what I did, and that is a huge competitive advantage for us. And I would argue it still is a huge competitive advantage for us today. But at the same time, I would not recommend that most people actually follow that path. Like, I think for most businesses, the best advice still is to go with an off-the-shelf ERP system. And if I was going to do that, and I've never used it, and I'm not I'm not associated with them at all, but like I always do study this stuff. And when I think about other businesses that I'm either buying or partnering with, like what ERP systems would I recommend? And like Fulfill.io is one that I think, has gotten a lot of traction, that has a very high level support team from what I can tell. And is has a lot of potential customization features and stuff like that within it. And so like if I were starting today, I would take a hard look at something like that, particularly if I was in the manufacturing or e-commerce space. I think that they have core competencies in both of those. So I've never used them, but like I just kind of observing the lay of the land, I think that I would be looking at something like that, and I would be much more reluctant to buy into like one of the big heavy duty ones like a NetSuite or SAP or whatnot that a lot of the big companies use. I think something like Fulfill.io, and I'm sure there are other ones like it. I just don't use any of them currently. That's really where I would be looking if I were looking for a new ERP system today. But for us particularly, it's a custom built ERP, and then we reconcile everything back into QuickBooks, which people think is odd when they hear the size of our company, and it's like, oh, you use QuickBooks. Well, we don't really use QuickBooks. That ultimately just becomes our where we keep like the final ledger of all transactions, but all the heavy lifting is done in a custom built ERP system. And for us that worked, but it's generally not what I would recommend for most people. I think Fulfill.io or something of that nature is where I would start if I were you. So I hope you find that to be helpful. Tobizi, I'm an analyst at an investment bank, and there's a path of private equity, but I'm deeply interested in building businesses and the organic and inorganic growth around. So do you think it's best to wait to after private equity or wait till afterwards? So I guess, or jump in wait till after private equity or jump in as soon as possible. I don't know is the honest answer to your question. I would like I have a bit of a distaste for private equity, and part of my mission and my journey is about giving people, a taste of what non-private equity life looks like, and then also hopefully to be a potential partner for people that would have that are either choosing to go the private equity route, or maybe I want to be somebody who's offering a alternative solution to that. And that's really a big part of my larger mission that I'm going on. So, recommending going into a private equity firm is a little bit of a tough thing for me, just because it's not something that, is something that I am, not particularly fond of myself. That being said, I do think that the principles that some good private equity firms teach in terms of operating business, or maybe not teach, or what they use, can be helpful in understanding how businesses run. Because private equity is oftentimes, is either leveraging the business a lot or has very ambitious, growth based off of the capital that they're inputting. It forces them to have very good and rigid practices around how to operate a business and how you think about operating a business. And I think that there are certainly some lessons you can learn from that. And I've never worked in one of those environments myself, but I know that they have good ones have playbooks that certainly work, and can be repeated. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can come from all of that. At the same time, I do think there are a lot of bad habits that can come from it. One observation that I would make, and I actually came across this yesterday when I was talking with a potential business to kind of acquire or partner with. Private equity has a bad reputation within the business community oftentimes, and it's because there are a lot of short-term decisions that are made that are, the kind of counterproductive to like what you describe as your organic growth over a long period of time. Because when you're thinking about a 3-year time horizon, which a lot of private equity firms are, then you're going to behave very differently than if you're thinking on a 10, 20, or 30-year time horizon. And I think that, if you're going to go work in a private equity environment, I would definitely find one that was a longer term focus. It had longer term exits, rather than I would look at one that had like a 10-year type time horizon versus one that was in a 3 to 5-year type time horizon, if possible, just because I think that builds better habits. But part of my you know part of my reluctance to send you into that world is I think that it kind of would teach you a framework that actually might not be consistent with building a long-term sustainable business, which seems to be what your which seems to be what your goal is. And so I think if you do it, you just need to go in eyes wide open. I mean, I've seen so many people that have been so successful going that route financially, and I think that there certainly are, good players within the private equity space. So I mean, it would be naive to lump the whole industry into one bucket. But I think you need to really understand who you're going to work with if you're going to work at a private equity, and what their business model is, and how they think. And I just think that even talking with other private equity firms, you know, everyone says that they're long-term focused, but the reality is when you dig into it, the long-term for them is 5 to 10 years. And in my opinion, especially if you're early in your career, you're much better off thinking on a 30 plus year time horizon. And I know that may sound silly, but life happens fast. And, I've been at this for 12 years and I feel like I'm just getting started. And for me, that mindset is just really core to how I think about the world. I think it's a huge differentiator for me, and something that I would encourage you to at least explore yourself. And so I'm certainly not going to discourage you for going and getting that private equity experience. I think that there are some business and operational things that I would have benefited from if I had done that earlier in my career, before starting. But I definitely don't think it's necessary to being successful. And I think that there are some bad habits that can happen if you're kind of trained in a more shorter term focused way. And you just need to go in eyes wide open and really understand what you're getting into when you do it. And so that's a very complicated subject for me, and it's something I intend to talk a lot more about in the future because it's something I'm very passionate about. And I think that there's a lot that there are better ways to do business oftentimes than the traditional private equity model. So I couldn't answer your question and say yes, go all open arms to private equity, but I can see some value if you find the right firm and go and you learn the right skills. So you're gonna have to make the best decision for you. But those are some high level thoughts that I have about private equity. And go out and figure out what feels good to you. Is ultimately, you've got to feel good about whatever you're doing, and if you do, then go in fully to whatever that is. What's next? Ivan P. Good morning, David. I shortened my name so it's easier for you to read. Oh, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, Ivan. How do you see next week's tariffs impacting your business? We've talked about this a couple times. When you say next week, I don't even know what's actually happening next week. I guess I would imagine that maybe we don't have a deal with Canada and Mexico or something, and they're doing the 25% tariffs. I'm kind of skeptical that those actually go into effect. I know nothing about it, so I'm just telling you my kind of gut reaction is I think that it's a negotiating tactic from what I've kind of seen about it, and I think that it's pretty unlikely that those are actually. I'm a consulting company in Canada, so this tariff topic is near and dear to my heart. Well, I'm skeptical that the governments, the Canadian government and the U.S. government will actually let it come to that. I don't know. I mean, that's just my kind of gut reaction. Like you saw the first time that they pretty quickly got that they got extended and there was a deal and they kind of goes to the last minute. And a lot of times in these negotiations, it waits to the last minute before you hear anything, because that negotiating leverage, gets higher the closer to the end date that it happens. So a little bit like a game of chicken to an extent. So my gut is that's probably what's happening, but that I have no clue. Um, you know, I if I was being like selfish about it, from a business perspective, it's probably would be beneficial for me, in that we manufacture all of our products in the U.S. Basically, all of our components come from the U.S. We do have competitors that import product from Mexico. We also have competitors that import product from Asia, and we're entering in other markets like the auto cabin filter market, and the air purifier filter market that are largely sourced from Asia. So if I were to put my selfish cap on, at least as in terms of filter by business, I think it would be beneficial for us, in all likelihood, just because it makes us more competitive, and we already have the infrastructure in place, and like other people may ultimately build the infrastructure to if those things came in and looked like they were going to be long term, but we've already built the infrastructure, we've already committed to it, so it would probably be beneficial for us, but at the same time, like I actually do not have a strong opinion on whether it's good or bad. Like I think it's a very complicated subject, and people, when you read about it, it's distilled as if it's so simple. And it's the things that we do not know, or what are the second and third order consequences. I mean, like how do people's behavior shift? How does end user pricing shift? Who actually ends up bearing that cost? People have lots of different opinions on that, and I think that most of them are not very well informed. I think it's a very complicated subject, and I know when you're changing things at such a macro level, that there could be lots of unintended consequences, both good and bad, that come from it. And so it's really impossible to know exactly how things play out if something like that does get enacted. And so I would just caution you or anyone from making any huge decisions that are non-reversible, until you really have full information and understanding. I mean, I think that you can do a lot more harm trying to react to something, in a short-term way without fully understanding what actually is happening. So like I would be reluctant to make any too many major decisions until there was some clarity, just because I think that it can change very quickly, and the actual outcomes can look very different than you might think going into a big change like that. And I just don't think that you're going to be rewarded for, for reacting, with just like a quick kind of scared reaction. I think you're going to have to kind of wait and see, and then make a strategic shift based off of what the long-term situation actually looks like. And I know that's frustrating if you're in the middle of it, or you have a lot of uncertainty, because it's never fun sitting in that. But sometimes your best bet is to wait and watch and observe, and then react as things actually happen. Because if you go out and you make a big like investment in something that is irreversible, and then they reverse whatever the thing you were making that investment for, you're still stuck with that investment or that shift, and that can be very expensive and be more problematic than if you maybe wait and wait it out a little bit, really understand what is happening, and then you'll have a clearer picture on how to react to it. And I think that, if I were in a situation where it looked like I could be, potentially impacted in a big way, I would be waiting and observing things before I made like a big irreversible decision, even if it's frustrating and even if it like cost you short term. I just think that, reacting with so many unknowns is very dangerous as well. And so just don't lose sight of that is what I would say are the best advice that I would give if I was in that situation. So hope that helps. And I hope that it does not negatively impact you. And I'm sorry, I don't know more about the specifics about, about what's happening. But I think anybody that tries to tell you otherwise is, quite frankly, misleading you. And I think you just have to kind of take some of these news articles with a little bit of grain of salt, because I just see so much stuff written about it that is just not true. So you got to make sure um, you understand what the source data is before you make any decision. What's next, Michael? Anime Inside English. What was the early stage marketing of FilterBuy? We were in the early 2010s, and so it's very basic SEO. Google AdWords and Amazon sponsored products. I mean, those were the early marketing um, you know marketing mechanisms that I used, and they're still pillars of our business today. I mean, we have a lot more additional marketing pillars today than we did back then, but those are still core to what we do today, and that has not changed, and it's not changed for our business. I also did early on, and still now, but it was kind of different earlier on. We had salespeople for where we were actually selling to distribution very early on, to be able to get our volume up. And so, we sold to distributors of air filters, and we had a couple of people on a sales team that were specific to that. So that would be like another marketing or sales strategy. I did that alongside the online direct to consumer traditional type marketing, simply to get our manufacturing volume up, because that was the only way that I could move enough product. As early on, I couldn't sell enough products online to justify our manufacturing infrastructure. So, I used, the commission sales force for that business, and then SEO and Google AdWords and Amazon sponsored products. I mean, and that was basically the mix of our early marketing strategy, and we still do all of those things today. So I think that the lesson I would learn, though, because I get this question a lot, and I think people are always looking for that um, you know, that magic bullet that's going to get them all the business that they need. If I just tell you, hey, go and do AppLovin, which is a sponsored display product that a lot of people talk about, like that's really where that's really where the action is. So go sign up for AppLove, and then it's going to solve all your problems. I think if I told you that, then without having any context of your business or what you're trying to do, that is very unlikely to actually be the panacea that you think it's going to be. And what I would encourage you is to reverse engineer where is your ideal customer? Where are you going to find them? And depending on your business or your product, it can be in any number of places. So if your typical customer is going into Google and searching for a specific type of product, then you want to be advertising on Google for that specific type of product or that specific type of search, and harnessing that demand, whether that be through SEO or through AdWords. But if at the same time, if you're in the service business and that person is likely to be going on to Angie's List and looking for somebody in their area via Angie's List, then I would want to be on Angie's List. Or if you're in a consumer product and your customer is your ideal customer is 22-year-old that spends half their day on TikTok, then you want to be making content on TikTok, and you want to be buying ads on TikTok, and you want to be on TikTok shops. There are any number of ways to sell your product, but I think that people are always looking for that quick fix, easy one solution, and you probably even know what that is. Like, I don't know what business you're in or what you're trying to sell, but my guess is if I asked you where are your customers, you would be able to say, give me an answer to that question. Almost anybody can, and so what that tells me is you probably know the answer, but you haven't actually taken action against it because you think it's either too competitive or too expensive, or you don't understand that platform very well. And so you're looking for some magical formula in some other magic platform that you're the only person, or I'm the only person that knows about. So I can tell you, hey, go to this platform and all your problems are going to be solved. And I would love to be able to tell you that. But honestly, if I had the answer to that, I probably wouldn't tell you, because I'd be out there doing it myself, because it'd be so easy, right? And that's just not how the world works. And it's just not how business works. And so the sooner that you can, you know, drop that mindset and really say, okay, well, where are my customers? And once you answer that question, if you don't know the answer to that question, then you need to rethink your business, because you don't understand your business. You don't understand what you're in. So like, if you don't have the answer to that question, then you need to go back to step one, which is, really understand a business, or understand what it is you're trying to accomplish with your business. Because if you don't know where your customers are, you haven't done that step properly. But if you already know who your ideal customer is, what they look like, what their demographics are, how they're spending their time, how they would potentially buy a product like yours, if you understand all that, which you better before you're going to get into a business, then the answer is you already know where your customers are. So go all in on that platform, or that subset of platforms where your target customers are, and do the hard work of figuring out how to do the creative, do the ads, whatever it is that platform needs. And, just go all in on owning that and figuring it out, and stop looking for the next magical platform that's going to solve all your customer acquisition problems, because it doesn't exist. And that's really the best advice that I've got for you. And I know that may not be fun, but it's the sooner that you understand that and you start taking action against that, the better off you're going to be. I promise you. That's all. That is 100% the answer. You can stop searching on YouTube. You can stop searching on OpenAI or ChatGPT. There's no better answer than that. Like, where your customers are. If you don't, rethink your business. But if you've done your homework, where your customers are, and go in and figure out how to do the hard thing, and understand the platform that for wherever your customers are, understand how to do the ads, do the creative, build the content that they're going to resonate with. And it's going to take you some time, and it's going to be hard, but the sooner you start working at it, the sooner you're going to get the desired result. And that is the answer. So you can stop looking at anything else, go do that, and you can thank me, in a couple of months. But I would say next week, but it's not realistic. If you've done it by next week, then I would be skeptical that you did it properly. So no more questions from you for 2 more months, and then you can come with me with the next step with the question. What's next? It's getting hot in here. Hi again, David. Another week. Can you talk to your weekly planning, and how often do you visit your top line vision and then goals? Do you write these down? Have them on your phone? Well, I mean, to your last point, sorry about that. To your last point, I do better than writing them down. I published them all over YouTube, if you didn't notice. So I think the first thing that I put out this year, I put them out on YouTube for everybody to see. So I have them pretty well etched into my memory, because I have people ask me about them all the time. So I don't have to write them down to remember what my top line goals are. And that's kind of funny, but it's like, you need to have internalized that. I mean, like, some people will recommend doing affirmations, which is an example of this, I guess, that are maybe like with long-term goals, where you look at yourself in the mirror and you repeat something oftentimes. That's not my style. In my brain, it's constant affirmations, because I know what my high level goals are. I'm very clear on them, and I revisit them constantly, every hour of every day of the year. So, I think that you need to get clarity on your long-term vision and your long-term goals first. And then you don't necessarily need to write them down, because you will have etched them into your mind, etched them into your brain, and you will and you will not need to write them down to remember them. So that would just be my first gut reaction to it. Um, and then you break it down into like 1 year goals, which I'm constantly reassessing those goals with the team. And so like every week I have weekly meetings with various stakeholders that own those goals, and so we're constantly assessing where we are and what we need to be doing it. And my weekly planning oftentimes within like actual operational business and operational work is dictated based off of the goals or the plans that are not going according to plan, right? So like I'm putting my energy into the areas that need the most help to be able to achieve those goals. So like I'm constantly assessing on a weekly basis, obviously what do I have to accomplish this next week? I'm looking at the business, looking at our performance, looking, taking in like all the weekly emails and updates and whatnot that I get. And then I'm inserting myself in the areas of the business that I can bring the highest leverage to help them to solve whatever problem or to get, to amplify their goals or to help them not miss targets or whatever the case might be. And so on a weekly basis, when I talk about my Sunday planning, that's really what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking the time to assess where we are and that kind of, relative to our 1 year goals, for instance, looking at the various aspects of the business and then doing a deep dive if it's something that I need to understand more of, and then planning my week to make sure that I am going to be attacking the areas that have the highest leverage for me that week. And so, the process is really simple. Like I have a very clear long-term vision, which you're going to hear me talk a lot more in the coming months about on this channel. But I've been very clear about my long-term vision for a long time. But then I've broken that down to like a 1 year plan, really a 2 year plan, but the 1 year plan is the most important, and I've publicly talked about the 1 year plan and actually put numbers on the 1 year plan. And so I have that 1 year plan, and I have a team around me that is incentivized against that 1 year plan. So we're very clear on what our goals for this year are. And then, we actually have a monthly budget that we can measure ourselves against how we are executing on that plan on a monthly basis, right? And then we are constantly then I'm constantly looking at how we're doing relative to that plan, and then doing my best to help the people or the teams that need the most help to be able to meet their targets against that plan. And Sunday is the time where I really have the time to kind of quietly sit down, observe, go through data, go through my update emails that I get, and kind of process the prior week to then decide, hey, this week, these are the few things that I want to make sure that I, get accomplished this week. So I'll give you an example. Very simple. This week on Sunday, I was doing a deep dive into our filterbuy.com business, and we have some SEO issues relative to a site, technology kind of redesign that we've been working on in the last year that's been quite painful. And there are a few areas within that I noticed, we really need to prioritize fixing, but based off the information I've gotten and just kind of observing what's happening, I was able to kind of distill it into a few pieces that I know are extremely important for us to fix as soon as humanly possible. And so, I came in this week and said, okay, I'm going to, get a handle around and figure out a plan to quickly solve, these three issues. And, that was a focus for me this week. And every week, I will go through everything and kind of figure out what are the leverage points that I, as the CEO, need to make sure that we are focusing on properly and taking the appropriate action against. And that is really how I think about my Sunday planning. And then I also think through like, okay, what are the other things that I'm scheduling this next week that I need to make sure that I accomplish. Some maybe scheduled from a couple months before because I have, a meeting or a PR type thing that I have to work in, and I work that into my schedule, and then I have things that pop up that I'm like, hey, yes, this is worth prioritizing because it's like maybe it's a business acquisition that comes up that is like, is this consistent with my vision of what I'm building or not? And if the answer is yes, then I will either take that exploratory phone call or I will go and meet the person if it's more serious, and kind of planning more of that stuff out. And my filtering mechanism is this consistent with my long-term plan, my long-term vision or not? And if the answer is yes, then it's something that I will likely explore and spend some time on. If the answer is no, then I'm not going to schedule that in or spend the time or allocate the time for that. Even if it's interesting to me, if it's not consistent with my long-term vision, it's something that I'm going to filter out. So that is the kind of very high level of how I do it. And Sundays generally the time where I have the time to just sit down and be strategic about how I'm thinking about the week ahead and where I'm putting my energy and putting my focus. And that is at a high level how I think about it. So hope you find that helpful. 1620 Garage and Farm. Thoughts on AI and using in a startup or existing businesses. Well, I think that AI is going to completely change how we do business and work over the next 5 years, if not even shorter, to be honest with you. So I think that there are lots of changes that are coming down to the pike for a lot of businesses, and I am still shocked at how many people I talk to, in like smart, senior people, oftentimes in even technical positions, that are still so skeptical about AI or spend so little of their day, trying to figure out ways to use it to enhance what they are doing. And I think that the future, like if you want to be successful in the future, you're going to have to find a way to use AI to enhance your own productivity and your business's productivity. Because if you don't, somebody else will. And so you can talk all day about, how, whether or not it's a good or a bad thing for society, or whether or not, it's something we should slow down or not. You can debate about that if you want to for sport. The reality is it's coming in a big way, and you're either going to embrace it and learn how to use it to enhance your business and enhance your skill set, enhance your productive ability, or you're going to be left behind. And that's just a fact. And so everybody needs to understand that first and foremost before you get to the next point. So the answer is yes, it's going to change everything. And the reality is that it's not going to be the quick fix to everyone's problems either, right? I mean, it's not going to be, it's not going to just do all your coding or do, all your data work or busy work that you don't want to do. Like it's not magic either. I mean, it feels more and more like magic the more you understand it and the more that you can use it. But it's a tool that you need to embrace and figure out how to use it to enhance what you're doing. And the only way that I know to do that is to experiment myself and to play with it myself, and to really understand it as much as humanly possible myself and take the responsibility for that. And I spend tens of hours every week with AI, using it, trying to understand it, thinking of use cases that we as a business can have for it. And that's the only way that I know to not be disruptive. It's ultimately to disrupt myself or disrupt the processes that we have in place, in order to be able to use it. So, if I were starting out and starting a business, it's definitely something that I would consider using to help me to start a business, because I think that you're going to see a rise, and you already are seeing the rise. It's not just theoretical, of these 1 or 2 person businesses that are able to build to significant scale using AI without huge teams. And I think that if I were young and like starting from scratch, it's something that I would be seriously considering, because I think that there is just so much potential with that. At the same time, I am a little I suppose, risk averse, or maybe risk averse isn't even the word. It's like I'm lazy in the sense that, I purposefully choose to go into businesses that I do not see being meaningfully disrupted by technology or AI in a 20-year time horizon. And that's why I'm so focused on physical products and service-based businesses. And I view AI as being an enhancer to our productivity, an enhancer to how we can do business, but not actually purely disrupting our businesses. And that's another subject that I intend to talk a lot more about in the foreseeable future. But that's really kind of my business philosophy. It's like I'm very much a I understand technology. I think as well as most people. And I built a business. I built our own ERP system, as I talked about early on, and I've really used technology to enhance our business in a major way. And I think that that's been a huge competitive advantage for us. And there are definitely days where I've thought to myself, "Oh, I would have been better off 12 years ago going all in on a SaaS startup or building, some type of technology." And I have the skill set where I could have done that, and I consciously made this decision not to. I consciously chose to go and work on a physical product, and that was tangible, that I thought would stand the test of time, and Warren Buffett always talks about staying within your circle of competence and not investing in things that you don't understand. And that's always been formative for me. And I'm kind of basic, I suppose, at the end of the day. And I see, like, when I see all this technology that's coming, there's so much potential with it. But generally in these cycles, it's a very, very small group of people that actually make money in the actual AI or the actual technology piece. But the value oftentimes comes from the businesses that are more stable, that are using AI, or in this case, or just technology in general, to enhance their business. That's really where the economic growth comes from, and why these things are so powerful, because they can completely change industries and unlock so much opportunity for so many people, which I think is what's going to happen. And that's why it's so wonderful for, as a society, to be able to have these enhancements and these productivity enhancements. But generally, the money is not going to be made in investing in AI necessarily, or even AI specific startups, in my opinion. But in real businesses that have real societal need, where you're using this technology that's becoming cheaper and cheaper to enhance your ability to service your customers. And that's how I think about technology. And I know there are a lot of people that make a lot of money doing these technology type startups, and I'm grateful for that, because I think that it does bring so much value to society as a whole in aggregate when it's used in practice. But I really am focused on kind of sticky, established businesses that are not likely to be disrupted in and of themselves by technology, but then using that technology as a way to really expand, be more efficient, and to provide the best service possible to your customers. And that's how I think about it. And I would encourage a lot more people to think about it in that way, because I think that you're going to see so many more opportunities in the world if you think about it that way. There's so much competition around, building the right SaaS product with AI as a one-person startup, or so obviously so much competition around the actual large language models themselves and whatnot. And everybody thinks that they're going to be the one that's going to crack the code on that. And there are some people that will, and they get disproportionately wealthy from it, and you read about them in the news. And if you can do that, that's wonderful. But I think you would find that your hit rate, or your probability of success, is much higher if you pick kind of maybe slower moving industry, slower moving business, really understand it, and then use the technology to enhance what it is that you're doing. So it's not an excuse to ignore AI, or not an excuse to ignore technology. You need to understand it. And I think that's extremely important. But I'd much rather see you or anybody go into a business that is more stable, that you can use this stuff to enhance your business rather than kind of viewing it as the panacea that's going to be the end all and be all or central use case of your business. So I hope that makes sense. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I would like to talk about it more because I think it's something that is a different perspective, I think, than what you read about a lot. And it's something that I think a lot of people would be smart to really understand a bit more. Michael, what's next?
It's a two-parter.
Adrian. Hi, David. How do you think VC and PE firms are positioned in clean air, especially for tech companies developing FDA-grade air cleaner sterilizers? Also, what do you believe is the key differentiator between a Chinese company selling air filters and you communication strategy? Well, the second one is easy. It's not communication strategy. It's logistics. I'm not sure if you like just think about this, right? Like an air filter is basically you're shipping air, and so you manufacture them in China. What do you have to do? You have to put them in a container, then put them on a boat, wait 4 weeks for them to get off at the LA port, and then they're going to go to a central. Probably what a Chinese seller would do is go to the AWD distribution center for Amazon, which is the Amazon warehouse and warehouse distribution centers that are long-term storage. They go there, they're going to get taken off the truck, then they're going to get rerouted to all the FDA centers, which there are fees involved in all of that. And then you're going to, they're going to take them out of their boxes, they're going to put them on shelves, and then they're going to repackage them and send them to an end customer. Or oftentimes they're actually going to leave that FDA center, go to another more smaller sorting center, then repackage, and then send to the end customer. All of that is incredibly expensive. And, by the way, even if you do all of that, you have to have enough inventory to be able always on the water to be able to meet your demand. Like we make the equivalent of 50 container loads a day of air filters, and we're able to keep only 2 weeks of finished goods within our whole system, right? So if you wanted to do that model, you're going to have probably 60 to 80 days of inventory always on the water. So I mean, that's not ordered. That's like on the water, like getting into your distribution centers. And then you're going to have to pay for all of that storage space here, but you're going to have to keep a lot more of it here, and you're paying for all of that transportation cost. So the cost of, like, in our business, and people, like, I say this all the time, and like literally nobody understands it, and it's so fascinating to me. Like none of our competitors understand it. Nobody understands it. It's crazy. But like the cost of shipping our product, like I spend more money on our shipping fees than I do all of our manufacturing, including all of our locations, all of our raw material combined. So you add all of that combined, my shipping cost is more than all of that. And so you're telling me that you're going to do all of that, plus you're going to add all the shipping and all this additional shipping cost that I just outlined that we do not have in our system. It just makes no sense. So that is why it's literally impossible. Like the economic, like if you just think about the economics of it, it just makes absolutely no sense. And I see so many people try. There are a lot of companies that try to do this, and I've gotten to where I always kind of laugh when it happens because I know how it ends, and it's just over and over again. And it's because people didn't go and study economics 101, understand, like, think about the cost of from the ground up of your raw materials to that product getting into your customer's door. Go and study each piece of that, all the fees that you're paying to do that, and then break it down and like actually put it on a spreadsheet and actually break down your incremental costs from all of this. And I don't mean just like guessing like what it's going to cost you to do stuff. Go and actually figure it out. And I recommend you do that for any product, because I think that people would enter into much smarter business decisions if they did. I mean, I think most people enter into these businesses without understanding the actual cost structure for getting that product to the end customer's hand, right? Like that's what you need to be thinking about. And you do that, go out and do all that math, and then come back and ask me the question again. So what was the first question of this? How do you think VC and PE firms are positioned in clean air, especially for tech companies developing FDA grade air cleaner sterilizers? you know, um, I don't think they're positioned very well. There's so much hocus pocus that goes into the development of these things, and I talk to lots of people on this, and I get pitched on it a lot. Um, Kind of similar to your last question, my big, like, it's something I'm very interested in, and I actually am looking for good solutions for this kind of stuff, because that are like truly marketable and viable. Because I think like indoor air quality is a huge problem, like globally, and with especially within certain areas of the U.S. And I think it's something that I hope to champion a lot more in the future and be innovative within. The problem is that a lot of these solutions in practice, in my experience, do not work as well as advertised. And it kind of similar to your other thing. It doesn't matter if a product just theoretically works. It has to be actually usable in practice and sustainable in practice, and something that can be maintained. And like, I did this video with kind of reaction to Brian Johnson, who talked about indoor air quality, and some of the comments were kind of funny to me. They're like, everybody wants to geek out about, like, well, if you just do this very specific esoteric thing and do this in every room, then you're going to be great. And that may be factually true, but in practice, to get people to actually do that, you're going to have a very low compliance rate. It's like if I say, if you want to get really healthy, you need to go to the gym 5 days a week and eat in a calorie deficit. Like, that's great, but that's not really helpful for most people, right? Because, like, what is the compliance rate of that? In the US, it's incredibly low. So having that information or that access to that is really worthless in reality. The only thing that it's only worth something if people use it. And so, to come back to your question, like, you look at these like fancy air purifiers and whatnot that sometimes get used in practice. I was actually in a meeting with somebody that develops a lot of indoor air quality solutions a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this specific subject. And he was telling me a story about like how he was in one of these places that you kind of talked about that has this great device that is supposed to be super beneficial. And they were having the meeting, and in that room where they were having the meeting, they discovered that he asked them why their device was not turned on in their meeting room, and it's because maintenance had not come in 2 weeks and changed the filter or done whatever it needed to keep running. In the product that they are selling, they did not have it running in that space. And what happens is, in practice with a lot of these devices, is they may theoretically work, but they're oftentimes expensive. And that expense is not just in the expense of the device; it's the expense of the maintenance of it and the changing all the filters. And it's not even just the cost of the filters. You have to have the maintenance people in the school system to come in and change that filter, for instance, or to make sure that the device continues to be functioning or whatever. And so it's a lot more complicated than meets the eye when you're just saying, hey, we have this specialty product that's going to do all this stuff. Is I literally get 10 emails a day from people that claim to have a product under FDA that's soon going to be approved by the FDA to do something specific. But then the practical application of it is what is lacking. And so why that relates to the first question is, like, it's not enough to know, like, hey, how cheaply can I manufacture a product? The real question is, how can I deliver a high quality product to a customer at the lowest price that they are going to use? Like, that is really the question you need to be asking when you're asking yourself. And I think that a lot of these companies that are developing this stuff are asking simply the wrong question. They're saying, how can we clean the air in a theoretical clean room environment to the highest ability possible? That's the question that they're trying to answer. And they may find great answers to that, and oftentimes they find great answers to that, but they're not practical in reality, and nobody's actually going to use them. They would not be sellable in reality. Nobody's actually going to sign up for it. And so that defeats the whole purpose of doing the research in the first place. So I would encourage you, if you have practical solutions that actually make sense and are going to be sustainable, then please reach out to me or send me a pitch deck, send me an email. I'm very interested in this subject, and it's something that I would love more innovation around, and I would love to be a part of it. But I think so many people kind of come from like this high horse, like, oh, we have this best product that really, like, lots of people have solutions to it. The real problem isn't the product itself or the device itself. It's the practicality of that in real world environments. And that is what I'm interested in, because that is how you can actually make a difference. And, it's not, I don't have the answer to that yet. And it's something that I'm very interested in, but it's also why, I recommend what is something practical you can do. It's the combination of a high quality air filter with UV light in your HVAC system and making sure that you have good airflow in your space, whether that be your home or your business. That's something practical you can do. It's not super expensive. You only have to change the UV light once a year on average. Sometimes you can get them to last 2 years. That's generally an overcomable hurdle for most people, and that is why I recommend it. Is it because that's the only thing that works, or that is the absolute best way to clean your air? No, it's not. And I didn't say it was, and that's not the point. But the point is that it's something that people can actually do. It's an action that somebody can actually take, is reasonable, and is sustainable. And that is why that is the first level of defense that I talk about when it comes to clean air. And I'm open to more ideas, but they got to fit that kind of practical thing for like the average family in the United States, or for like the average business in the United States, because otherwise you have a niche product that is just not really going to move the needle. And that's how I think about it. And I hope that anybody that pitches me these in the future can do it from that lens. You do it from that lens, then maybe we can talk about it. One more, Michael, I guess, and then we'll call it a day. Jeff, easiest name of the day. I'll edit name here, who I got to give credit for, is not so bad either. Given you didn't have experience in manufacturing or this industry, how did you get up to speed and build the confidence to make the investment of both time and money to build this business? I was naive. So I actually think that it helps. It oftentimes helps not knowing like exactly what you're signing up for when you do it, because if I went in eyes fully open, I don't think I ever would have done it. And that's just the truth. So that might not be helpful. But it's why I encourage people to go out and get experience first, and really build the self-esteem that it takes to be able to go out and do something big. I was fortunate to have very good career before I started working, and like, it has absolutely nothing to do with what I ultimately built. But I built a lot of good skills and a lot of self-esteem in that process. And a lot of self-confidence, really, just in how to solve problems and how to deal with problems. And that's why I think that experience early on is so important, and why, I think that, I think entrepreneurship culture is great in some ways, and that, like, I do think that it encourages people to take agency for their own lives and to go out and build things and not be dependent on others, and like all things that I resonate very heavily with, and I think make a ton of sense. And so, like, I'm not knocking that, but like, I think that there is value in going and getting experience first, because that helps you to kind of learn some of these lessons, like while working for somebody else, and also just to get the confidence to really be able to have the staying power that you need when you actually go out and start a business. And I think that a lot of people go out and start a business, or a lot of young people may go out and start a business without that experience, and they just get kind of sucked into the dream of entrepreneurship or the allure of it, and they think, oh yeah, I can do hard work, and I know, yes, hard things are going to happen, but I'm going to be able to get through it. And if we all tell that stuff, it's easy to say that when you're not living it, but then you go and you get hit with it. Like, just as an aside, it's so funny to me, like, crypto has been getting crushed in the last couple weeks, and particularly the last few days, and people are just freaking out everywhere. And it's like if you kind of take a step back a little bit, that basically you're back to prices that were here like last October or something like that. And if you can't handle that kind of volatility, you shouldn't be in that game. And I only say that because, like, so many people enter into entrepreneurship, thinking that things are always like they say, yeah, bad stuff happens, but I got the stomach for it, or I'm going to be able to get through it, or I've got the experience to be able to make this work. And that sounds well and good, but then when bad stuff actually happens, or you really get punched in the gut, then you realize you didn't have the stomach that you thought you did. And I think that, having had the career that I did before I started working for myself, and having a lot of those experiences while working for someone else, really ultimately gave me the confidence to be able to come into something where I had unknowns, and but I knew I was going to be able to overcome those problems and that adversity over and over again. And I think that, there is, like, I'm very fortunate, for full disclosure. I was born, I think I won the genetic lottery and was very, very fortunate to be built for, doing hard things, and having the resilience that it takes to build a business. And I think that it's not something that is for everybody. And I think self-awareness around that is just so important. And I think that most people that try to do what I have done would be absolutely miserable. And I think that self-awareness for that is it needs to start there. But on the flip side of that, I do think that problem solving and doing hard things and overcoming adversity is a muscle that gets stronger with time if you work at it and you build it. And unfortunately, the only way to do that is to put yourself in the line of fire and kind of force yourself to build that muscle, because by doing hard things, or doing things that scare you, and committing to it fully, and then finding a way through. And if you do that consistently over a long period of time, you'll find that your ability to handle that adversity and to handle those problems just really skyrockets, and because that muscle is stronger. And but there is no shortcut to that. I mean, and there's no video you can watch. There's no influencer you can watch. There's nothing that's going to shortcut you from that. So, like, the sooner that you just take ownership of that, the better off you're going to be. So with that, hope you all have a great week ahead. For the first week of March, we're the last month of the first quarter. And I'm out there grinding every day, and I hope you are too, against whatever vision or dream it is that you have and are out there looking to make a reality. So have a great week. See you next Friday at 11. And I think we're actually dropping a episode. We have a piece of content coming out today, which is very rare, I think, at 1:00. So you can tune in on that in 45 minutes at 1:00. And then tomorrow, we have an episode that we are dropping. We're going to kind of do a deep dive on Amazon, because that's something that a lot of people have talked about, and I'm curious to see what kind of feedback we get on it. And so we're going to kind of change the content strategy a little bit. We're playing, and you're going to see some more changes over the coming months. But I'd love it if you'd watch it and get in the comments. Tell us what you like about it, what you don't like about it. I'm happy with both good and bad, as long as it's genuine. As long as it's genuine feedback, we'll take it. So have a great week ahead, and I will see you next week.